Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Putri Zafira Zara. My ID is 33210069. And I want to presentation my Applied Linguistics Final Term Project. Sebentar, ini apa? Table of content. I will discuss two contents. First is problem one, problem solving by using applied linguistics and journalism materials and adding some theories from the internet. And the second is problem two, problem solving by using social linguistics and language teaching and learning materials, as well as adding some theories from the internet. Problem one. Mr. Thompson is a linguist studying the use of language in news reporting. He is particularly interested in how language can convey bias, shape public opinion, and influence the perception of news events. Mr. Thompson analyzes articles from various news outlets covering the same events to identify linguistic patterns that may indicate bias. He also considers the impact of these linguistic choices on the audience understanding and interpretation of the news. So the question is, what linguistic features should Mr. Thompson focus on to identify bias in news reporting? And discuss at least three features and explain how they can contribute to biased reporting. Before we get into answer, what is the definition of media bias? So there are three definitions of media bias. First one is media bias is defined by researchers as latent news coverage or internal bias reflected in news article by Hamburg in 2018. The second is by definition, remarkable media bias is deliberate, intentional, and has particular purpose and tendency towards a particular perspective, ideology, or result by William in 1975. And the last is, on the other hand, bias can also be unintentional and even unconscious by Brummer 2015 and William in 1975. Different news production process stage introduce various forms of media bias. Three features that can contribute to biased reporting. So the first one is word choice and connotation. What is word choice and connotation? So to our knowledge, there are no tools or systems that automatically identify media bias based on word choice. This tech is challenging for several reasons. First is, while there is a vast amount of news text data available, these articles are not labeled with the sophisticated text needed to detect bias include inducing words, and existing annotated datasets are very small. This means there is no large-scale gold standard dataset for identifying media bias by word choice by Hamburg in 2018. Additionally, bias identification is a complex task for non-experts like Liam, uh, Rikison, Denescu, Niculescu, Mizil, and Juravsky in 2013, complicating the creation of such datasets. And finally, bias words are highly content dependent, so the mere presence of certain words is not a reliable indicator of bias by Hugh and Fetahu in 2018. So in bias reporting, word choice and connotation play a critical role in expressing bias, shaping public opinion, and affecting how people interpret news events. Depending on which word journalists select to describe an event, inflammatory or neutral, a reader can perceive the information differently. In turn, an author can manipulate a reader's perception by implying a particular opinion or perspective or inducing positive or negative emotion. So, on positive versus negative connotation, you can gently sway readers' options by using words that have either a positive or negative meaning. So, for example, referring to a government project as a scheme indicates defeat. So, whereas the term reform denotes good progress. This bolsters Zillizer's contention that news affect our worldview and creates our shared reality. And on emotional language, adjectives such as tragic, outrageous, or inspiring arouse feelings in viewers and may slant their perception. So, according to Anderson in 1983, this language keeps listeners in an imagined community by preserving shared realities. The second is framing and agenda setting. Framing is distinct from accessibility-based models in that it focuses on how the portrayal of an issue in the newspaper can shape audience perception. It has roots in psychology and sociology by Penn and Konsticky in 1993, with significant contributions from Kahneman and Tversky, whose work earned in Kahneman the 2002 Nobel Prize in Economics by Kahneman in 2003. Agenda setting, on the other hand, suggests that the prominence given to issues by the mass media influences the perceived importance of these issues by the public, by Mikox and Shaw in 1972. So, uh, bias reporting in framing impulse the way information is presented, which significantly influence how the audience interprets events. This can be seen in the selection and emphasis of certain aspect of a story over others. On selection of facts, journalists may highlight facts that support a specific narrative while omitting others, creating a biased view. For instance, focusing only on the economic benefit of the controversial policy without mentioning its social or environmental costs can skew representation. On context as well, providing specific context can shape audience interpretation. Emphasizing violence indicates during a protest over peaceful demonstration can create a distorted perception. This approach is part of the journalistic method of interpretation and meaning. And third, use of quotes and attribution. So quote extract and attribution have been well studied for English language newspaper by Crystal at 20, on 2008, Smith in 2012, and Parity in 2013. That research highlighted how the ways in which quotes are presented and hence the challenges for extraction and attribution vary quite markedly between different varieties of English and even different newspapers. Quote attribution is then the text of associating text spans with pictures. So the way sources are quoted and attributed can reveal bias, especially in how different voices are included or excluded from a narrative. On selective quoting, such as emphasizing voices that support one viewpoint while minimizing opposing perspective, can skew the narrative. Like for example, in political reporting, overrepresenting quotes from one party supporter while neglecting the oppositions can distort audience perception. And on anonymous source can introduce bias by allowing journalists to present information without accountability, impacting the report's credibility and perceived objectivity. The practice relates to principles in journalism, like verification and ethical standards, influencing how narratives are shaped and understood. Okay, next in problem 2. Problem 2. Imagine you are a language planner work for the government of a country with a diverse linguistic landscape. The country has several indigenous languages spoken by different ethnic groups, and as well as dominant national language used for official purposes. Your task is to develop a language policy that promotes linguistic diversity while ensuring effective communication and national unity. So the question is, how can the government promote the use and preservation of indigenous languages through education? Before I answer that question, we must know what is indigenous languages. So indigenous, naturally existing in the place or country rather than arriving from another place. It means that anything indigenous is not imported, rather it exists and handed over from generation to another. Second is indigenous language. An indigenous language is a language that is native to a region and spoken by indigenous people, often reduced to the status of minority language. These languages would be from a linguistic distinct community that has been settled in the area for many generations by Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia. And the last is indigenous language. Is a language of a particular group of people occupying an area used to communicate within themselves, which is passed from generation to another. They are famously known for such language by other communities around them. And the definition by some experts. By Crystal in 2000, uh, defines indigenous languages as languages that are original to a particular place and spoken by the original inhabitants of that area. And from Fishman, in 1991, sociolinguistic views indigenous language as those spoken by the indigenous population of a territory, emphasizing their role in maintaining the cultural and social identity of the communication. And the last is from Hinton in 2001, an expert in language revitalization. Described like indigenous languages as those that are deeply rooted in the land and tradition of indigenous people. Okay. So how can social linguistics support the preservation of indigenous languages in education? So by social linguistic material, uh, we can answer the problem too, as the government can adopt a number of steps to encourage the usage and preservation of indigenous languages through education in order to create a language policy that fosters linguistic diversity while maintaining efficient communication and national unity, because it offers insight into how language is employed in various social contexts and how it conveys social meaning. Sociolinguistics plays a critical part in this process. Step to promote indigenous language through education by sociolinguistic material. So by sociolinguistic material, first is multilingual education. Beside the prevalence of multilingualism throughout history, there is limited knowledge about the various forms of multilingualism in society. This special issue explores indigenous contexts where national multilingualism models are less influential. The definition is by Fishman in 1967 and Loop in 2015 and 2016. Current discussions often treat sociolinguistic complexity or the superdiversity as a recent phenomenon due to modern mobility and diversity. That definition from Blomert in 2013 and Fettovec in 2006. However, these conditions have long existed in local language groups and are now becoming more common in urban centers. In indigenous contexts, discussions on multilingualism usually focus on the interaction between indigenous language and those introduced by colonialism. So, multilingualism education is implement a multilingual education system where students are taught in their mother tongue, followed by a national language and then a global language like English. This approach ensures that students learn in a language they understand, fostering better academic performance and retention of the knowledge. The second one is language policy. What is language policy? So relying on school and official status declaration to save endangered languages is like looking for lost key under the street lamp just because it's right there, not because the keys are actually there. So while it's easier to set up school and declare a language official, this doesn't ensure that families will speak the endangered language to their children, which is essential for its survival. Official policy have little impact on home use of a language. As Rubel in 2001 points out, authorities can dictate family language choices. Practical measures beyond this policy are needed for a language to remain in everyday use. So, language policy is develop a language policy that recognize and accept multilingualism as the norm. This policy should ensure that all languages, including indigenous language, are valued and respected. It should also provide for the use of indigenous language in official contexts such as government, service, and education. And the third is teacher training. So the Corey Center encountered difficulties in creating courses for various indigenous languages, each with different level of validity. Rather than enforcing standard levels, they opted for a flexible approach to aid language development by Corey Center in 2005. Although this flexibility benefits the center and the student, it conflicted with the NCW Institute of Teachers requirements for teacher education course to match the standard of other languages, which include significant post-secondary study and influence. So, since such advanced training isn't currently available for indigenous languages in the state, an interim compromise was reached. So teacher training is provide training for teachers to teach in multiple languages, including indigenous languages. This will help ensure that teachers are equipped to handle the linguistic diversity of the student population. Fourth is curriculum development. So the curriculum developer could not begin without some notion of what is possible and desirable educationally. So the system of belief and values that curriculum developer brings to him, his text and that guide the development of the curriculum is what I call the curriculum platform. The word platform is meant to suggest both a political platform and something to stand on. The platform includes an idea of what is our vision of what ought to be, and this guide the curriculum developer in determining what he should do to realize his vision. So that curriculum development definition by Walker in 1971. So curriculum development is develop curricula that incorporate indigenous languages and cultures. This will help students learn about their own cultural heritage and promote a sense of identity and belonging. The last is community engagement. So in indigenous language research, community refers in the first instance to all members of a language speaking community, from the grassroots language speaker, language learners, and language teachers to various decision-making bodies. In practice, each research project, especially if it is collaborative, needs to define for itself how it will constitute community for the purpose of the project and the research situation. This definition community engagement by Benoit in 2005 and Tinkler in 2004. So community engagement is engage with local communities to understand their language needs and preferences. This will help ensure that the education system is responsive to the needs of all students, including those for indigenous backgrounds. So, rule of sociolinguistic in on indigenous indigenous languages through education. There are four. First is understanding language use. It examines how language is used in various social contexts. crucial for preserving indigenous language through education by considering factors like participant setting, purpose, and topic. Second is language variation and charts. It studies how language varies and change across social groups, aiding in the preservation of indigenous language by identifying influence like social distance, status, and formality. Third is language attitudes and ideologies. It investigates attitudes and beliefs about languages, helping to understand societal perceptions of indigenous languages and how education can shape these attitudes. And the last is language and identity. It explores the connection between language and identity, show how indigenous languages are used to form personal and group identities, and how education can promote their use and preservation. And uh, answer problem 2 by using language teaching learning materials. So how can language teaching and learners support the preservation of indigenous languages in education? So this strategy should be integrated into a language teaching and learning process to ensure effective preservation and promotion of indigenous languages. There are four strategies. First is incorporate indigenous language into curriculum language teaching. Second is use indigenous language in educational materials language learning. Third is language testing and assessment language testing. And the last is language planning and policy language planning. First one is language teaching. So language teaching on indigenous language involves the structured instruction and learning of these languages, often with the goal of preserving and revitalizing first, language teaching. Language teaching on indigenous languages involves the structured instructions and learning of these languages, often with the goal of preserving and revitalizing them. So, by David in 2007, suggests that the teaching and learning of languages, including indigenous languages, are deeply connected to applied linguistics. This field provides theoretical and practical frameworks to understand how language education can be effectively implemented. So, language teaching includes indigenous language in the curriculum, especially in primary education. This will help students develop proficiency in their native languages and foster a sense of cultural identity. For example, in Australia, there are programs that teach indigenous language in the school, such as the First Languages Australia initiative. Second is language learning. Teaching indigenous languages face several challenges and misconceptions as highlighted by Kaplan in 1993. Points on second language learning by Davis in 2007. Language teaching, especially for indigenous languages, is undervalued and poorly compensated. It's mistakenly seen as easy but actually demands significant effort, including repetition, trust building, and active listening. So educator must engage deeply with students, encouraging and participating actively in the learning process to receive these languages. This dedication is crucial for preserving cultural heritage, but it requires strong support to address the undervaluation and burnout of language teachers. So language learning is use educational material such as textbook and incorporate indigenous languages. This will help students learn about and engage with their native languages in a more immersive way. So, for instance, the Australian Institute of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Studies provide educational resources that include indigenous languages. The third is language testing. Testing is tailored to operational needs that shift based on the work event, impact the types of text needed, and requiring tight deadlines by Brook and 2008. Language testing and assessment are always historical situated and conditioned, embedded in the knowledge, beliefs, and ideologies about their goals and best practice. Language testing represents one of the core areas of applied linguistics. First, The development of the language test involves a careful definition of the domain of knowledge, skill, or ability it is targeting. So the development of a test of general proficiency in a language by McNamara in 2004. So language testing is develop language tests and assessment that are culturally sensitive and take into account the indigenous languages. This will help ensure that students are evaluated fairly and that their proficiency in indigenous languages is recognized. For example, the Australian Institute of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Studies provide language proficiency tests for indigenous languages. And the last is language testing. I mean, in the front is language planning, not language testing. Okay. Language policy encompasses all informal, oral, and written text aimed at reframing of changing language dynamic in society. Kaplan and Boulders in 1977 and recently in 2000 and 2009, and Schiffman in 2013. So language planning attempts to influence this dynamic through specific measures addressing the structure, status, acquisition, and prestige of languages. Hughes in 1959 and Close in 1969. Often language planning is based on the language policy, but sometimes language policy is informed by existing or new language planning measures. So language planning is develop language policies that support the use and preservation of indigenous languages. This includes policies that promote the use of indigenous languages in the education, government, and other official contexts. So for the example is the Australian government's Indigenous Languages and Arts program has policies that support the use of indigenous languages in the education and government. So, role of the language teaching and learning in preserving indigenous languages is language teaching and learning play a crucial role in the preserving indigenous languages. So, by incorporating indigenous languages into a curriculum and providing training for our teachers, language teaching can help ensure that indigenous languages are passed down to future generations. And additionally, language learning can help students develop a deeper understanding and appreciation of their native languages, which can contribute to their preservation. And these are resources from my presentation today. Now, okay, that's all from me. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.